So, Trevor, I think a lot of faculty would love to shift a bit into problem-based learning because, listening to you, it seems to be such a better way of assessing students and things. But they're a little apprehensive in terms of how they get it started, how are they going to assess it, how do I assess a team? So, and there's a lot of misconceptions out there and a lot of, I guess, barriers for faculty to really take the plunge into more problem-based learning. Can you talk a little bit about some of the barriers and misconceptions that you have overcome to create really effective problem-based learning activities?
Yeah, I think that there are two kind of pillars that I can use to answer that question. I think the first is just sort of disrupting this misconception that problem-based or project-based or inquiry-based learning is just telling kids to just go figure things out for themselves. There's no guidance, there's no structure, there's nothing. I think that that is a really silly, caricatured version of what a lot of people think project or problem or inquiry-based learning is. And instead, I like to think about it as a frame that you can use to invite students into learning that is a lot more engaging than just saying, here's a topic that we're going to cover. And if I am doing a problem-based unit, there will be times where I will do a mini lecture. There will be times where I model what does it look like to, going to my previous examples, to cut or edit in a video software, or what does it look like to use a literary lens to create an interpretation. So I model, I do direct instruction. Those pieces are tools in my pedagogical repertoire that I can use. The difference is giving students space to kind of figure out for themselves what unique framing or idea or perspective they're going to bring to that, and kind of thinking about content as I guess kind of like a set of Lego bricks that they can use to construct their own knowledge or ideas, and then they can bring in other Lego bricks from their own life worlds, from other classes, etc., to kind of answer those questions. So the first thing that I kind of want to disrupt is that it's just sort of like chaos with no direction. There are a lot of strategies, there are a lot of tools that one can use, and some of those include more traditional teaching methods. It's just using them intentionally as opposed to the sole way that content is delivered. And I think the second one is that you don't have to overnight revamp your entire course, your entire pedagogy. There are really thin sliced ways to have students do problem based learning. And if you're really shy or nervous, you could even treat it as an extension activity to a unit that you have. So for instance, I just did a unit where the problem that we are exploring is what is the nature of American freedom. So we read from Thoreau and Emerson and Douglass and Whitman, and then students brought in some contemporary thinkers as well. And then we did sort of a synthesis essay based off of that. It's one of our more traditional units. But as an extension, I then asked students to come up with a product of their choice. It could be artistic, it could be digital, whatever, where they explore their own personal philosophy of what American freedom is. And because we were short for time, because we had our break coming up and had some snow days, my students are able to fit that in a pretty short amount of time. So if you're a teacher with, a limited amount of days to do the type of work that would move your students towards problem-based learning, and you're nervous, you have a curriculum you're following, it's a really easy thing to kind of find a way to just insert it at even just at the end of the unit. And I think the goal isn't to stop there; it's to continue finding ways to integrate it into your practice. But you can find these little thin slices, these thin opportunities to invite students into problem-based learning, as a way to give them opportunities to have more agency and freedom, but in a, whatever constraints that you have as a teacher. So I think that those two things are really foundational. And just like also the idea of problem as opposed to project, if I could add one more tiny pillar to that, I think is really important. Like problem-based learning is whether it's through thinking about problems that the discipline that you teach explores, problems that are relevant to students' life worlds, problems that are relevant to our current social and political environment. It's finding ways to present content not as things that they should learn because they're in 10th grade English, but rather what are problems that we the discipline America needs to solve, and how can we package the knowledge and the skills in our curriculum in a way that helps students see the affordances and the utility of that learning in, actually doing meaningful things in their lives and in the world, as opposed to checking a box on a curriculum guideline.